All right, hello everybody. Good afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Professor Baker. I'm actually coming to you right now from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's where I am at the moment. This has been a little odd summer for me as we're actually in the process of selling our home in Texas, and so we're staying with right now with my parents, or excuse me, my in-laws, my wife's parents, and then next month we'll be with my parents until we have to come back for the start of the school year, and at that point we'll be in a rental until our new house is finished. So this has been a little different for me, trying to stay on top of things as much as possible. Obviously you can see that's the beach right in front of me. Nice view for grading. Makes it a little harder to focus. So I wanted to go through a couple of things here now that we're in week 3 in the course. And I haven't actually made a video yet, so I haven't been able to speak directly to you. Hopefully y'all have paid attention to the couple of announcements that I've put on the page. And hopefully you're reviewing the comments that I've put on your short response papers as well. All right. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is, especially when it comes to those comments that you see on the short responses, please don't take those personally. In fact, some of you are probably aware enough to have put this together now after the last short response assignment and it being all about dissenting opinions. You may have realized that a lot of what I do, and this is actually my philosophy as an educator, I believe in the Socratic method of education, which means you simply question everything. So regardless of what you've put in your short response options, nothing in politics is ever 100%. That's why we have multiple political parties. We have different political ideologies. There's not a consensus on anything. And I've been doing this long enough now. I know all sides of arguments very, very well. I will sort of be the dissenter. I will ask questions about your statement. That doesn't mean that your point isn't valid. It doesn't mean that your point isn't a majority opinion. But I just want you to understand that I believe in dissent because I believe that one of the things that dissent does is it does strengthen opinions, right? If you, and now we're not talking about majority versus minority opinions, we're just talking about dissent as in somebody's disagreement with your opinion. If you're capable of countering that, if you're capable of listening to what they're saying, digesting it, understanding it, taking it at value, and then trying to address that, I think it strengthens your own argument. So that's what I do as an educator. So please understand that. I will tell you, as far as grading goes, you will receive no additional points if you were to somehow miraculously figure out my political ideology and write some sort of paper that was in line with it. I will tell you right now that if I were to have completed the very first assignment, that political spectrum assignment that I gave you, if I were to have completed it honestly and truthfully, I don't, the handful of times that I've done it, I've never aligned with any individual candidate more than 40-something% of the time. I've never even found anybody that I align with a majority of the time. That's how sort of unique I am in terms of my own personal political ideology. So please don't think that, being pro-Trump or anti-Trump is going to somehow score you points, as it will not. All right. Hopefully we understand that. If to this point on one of the dissents you've received less than a 10, I will tell you the three most likely reasons for that are either A, you have an incomplete idea, right? So you have not expanded upon something. You've just provided a statement like dissenting opinions are good because they're an alternative opinion. Okay, well, that's what it is. That's the definition of it. That's not an explanation as to why it's good. That's simply a definition, right? So that's what I would consider an incomplete idea. 2, you would receive something less because you have summarized what you read or watched. I'm not looking for a summary. I'm looking for a response. Or three, what you have written is sort of incoherent. They're not formal writings. I don't grade them as formal writings. I mean, if you have punctuation or spelling errors and I can figure out what you're trying to say, I give you credit for it. I'm a relatively informal person myself. But if it doesn't make sense, and I've actually had a couple that I've struggled to follow your line of thought. You're bouncing from idea to idea. And so it's hard to understand what you actually mean. So those would probably be the three most common reasons for that. I'm going to go back real quick to that second one, the summary. The purpose of the short response, and this is actually further on in my notes, but we're going to cover it right now. The short response is not an SAR, right? I think based on the introductory discussion board that we had, I think that just about all of you are dual credit students, and it seemed like the vast majority of you went to George Ranch. So what I will tell you is the short response is not an SAR. It's not in the AP. I do not like College Board. I used to teach AP before I was a dual credit professor. For LCISD, I was the AP government teacher at George Ranch for a number of years. I don't like the idea of SAR because that implies that there is an answer, and an answer implies that there is something that is correct. Again, this is politics and it's opinion based. So if you tell me that, the death penalty is a deterrent to crime and therefore should exist, that's your opinion. If you believe that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment and therefore it should be banned according to the 8th Amendment, that is your opinion. Obviously, those two opinions cannot sort of coexist, yet neither one of them would be correct. They're just opinions. What I'm looking for is your opinion. I want you to become opinionated, but I want you to be able to justify your opinion, right? So if you were to tell me that I don't know, if you were to tell me, we'll stick with the 8th Amendment here, right? So if you're going to tell me that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment, you would need to back up that statement with some sort of historical understanding as to what is cruel and unusual, right? If you tell me that it's immoral, I would hope that you could make the logical connection that if you were to kill a killer, the same number of killers still exist in the world, right? I mean, conceptually, that would be true. I don't think that decreases the number of people, even if we allow that to happen from a legal standpoint, right? So I'm looking for your opinion, but I'm looking for your justification within your opinion, right? I mean, if you tell me that only blue-eyed people should be allowed to have children, right? Like, I'm going to need you to justify that opinion in some way, right? Even if, and understand this, right? Because we used Plessy versus Ferguson in the last concept, right? We talked about that, or the video talked about that, right? I want you to understand that there were just historically horrific scientific inaccuracies that used to exist as judgment for or justification for IDs, right? If you go back to the 18th century, right, women weren't allowed to participate in politics because they had ovaries, and ovaries made you hysterical, and that was a scientific fact. People believed that. Okay, obviously we know that that's not true. That's completely irrational in this day and age. Yet that was the science of the day, right? I mean, comically, you go back to 100 years ago. For instance, I served in the military. I was in the Marine Corps, right? And you learn some of this stuff. Pre-World War II, black people were not allowed to have specific jobs within the military because they couldn't see at night, right? Like that was known science, right? It's ridiculous. Okay. If you were to use something that we think to be true today and it turns out to be false, that's fine, right? Like, it happens. That's obviously why opinions change over the course of time. That's another thing that I want you to understand about opinion, right? And that's part of the reason why I call these opinions, right? One of the things that I tell my face-to-face kids, right, and a couple of you have had older siblings that may remember this comment that I taught at George Ranch, right? I want people to have strong opinions loosely held, which simply means that I want you to have a strong opinion, believe it, right? If you think that life begins begins at conception, believe that, right? If you think that life begins at birth, believe that, right? But be willing to change your opinion if new evidence were to arise, right? Now, obviously, that's not one where I don't know. I mean, some higher power would have to come down and be like, this is when life was created. I don't know if that one would be one to change, but you get my point, all right? So that's the purposes for the short response. Okay. So the short response versus the discussions. I will tell you this. I'm personally not a fan of discussion boards. I love discussion. If you ever sat in my face-to-face classes, we discuss a lot, a great deal, all kinds of questions. I love trying to literally. Yeah, I mean, I'm a terrible person sometimes. I like confusing people. I like discussing to the point where you walk away from that going, I have no idea what to think anymore. Because I think once you realize you have no idea what to think, then you begin to start thinking critically. And so I love discussions, but I think discussion boards ultimately become something called echo chambers, right? Where you simply go, oh, John, I really liked your opinion when you said blah, 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 right? And then you repeat what John said in their post, and that's your reply. That's not a reply. I will tell you this though, I don't fight it. If you do the discussions and you're on topic, even if your whole discussion is just telling somebody what a great job they did and how you really appreciated this individual point and that point and whatever, you're going to get credit. Okay, so the discussion should be relatively easy in that regard. All right, so this brings me to the major reason for actually creating a video, and that is to go over the essay that's due this Sunday night. Okay, so I've already had a couple of people email me and ask me some questions. You're always welcome to email me. I try my absolute best to get back to you within a couple of hours because it's a very, very short course, right? We only have really 5 weeks. That 6th week is 2 days, right? And that 6th week is just an exam. It's that test over basically the branches of government, right? The Congress, Supreme Court, and presidency, right? And that's Monday, Tuesday, and that's it. That's all it is on the 6 weeks. So it's really a 5-week class. We're in week 3. That tells you how fast we're moving. Okay. So I try to email back as quickly as I possibly can. Okay. So here's a couple of points, hopefully for everybody. Number 1, it'll tell you Chicago style. And I don't know how else to explain this other than to say, when I say Chicago style, I want Chicago style footnotes. That means I want Chicago style citations. I do not need 100% Chicago style. Like if you go to Purdue Al, Chicago style will tell you that it needs to have a title page and an abstract, and I don't need all that. Okay, it's a 1,000 word essay. Okay, a single spaced 1,000 word essay, and it should be single spaced. It should look like my example that I provided for you. Okay, but a 1,000 word single spaced essay with footnotes is 2 pages. Right? Meaning I could print your paper out and it's front and back, and I only have to keep one piece of paper as a hard copy if I ever wanted to or needed it. Okay? So that's what I mean when I say Chicago style. I want footnotes. The reality is Microsoft Word should do that for you. If you go to the tab at the top, references, it should help. I've got a little video that I don't know if I copied it into this course or not on how to do that. I will copy it in today if it's not already in there. All right. So that's that. All right. Second, this is also an opinion-based paper. And again, your opinion cannot be wrong, but your opinion can be illogically, or it can be logically flawed, okay? So I do want to make sure that you understand that. We're looking to try to minimize the logical fallacies as much as possible, okay? And then as far as like my expectations, I expect you to write like a first-year college student, okay? I've got no problem. I'm not an arrogant person. I come off that way from time to time. I really try not to be. Okay. If you honestly think that I have been too harsh in your grade, you're more than welcome to email me afterwards, and I will look at it again. And I've changed my grade from time to time. That being said, I did have a student a year ago, 2 years ago, it was one paragraph, stream of consciousness thought, and they didn't understand why they didn't get an A. I mean, not only did they not get an A, they like, I don't know, I can't remember what I gave them. I gave them somewhere around a 70. And they were appalled. They didn't understand how that was. That's not college level writing. And so I do expect you to be able to utilize paragraphs and have like a thought in a paragraph that's expanded upon and explained, and then when you have your next thought, you have your next paragraph, right? That's what a paragraph is. It should be individual thoughts. And that being said, I have absolutely no expectation that you write like a third-year law student. This is not law school, okay? I certainly don't need Latin. I don't need any of that, ex post facto or, any of those legal Latin phrases that get utilized. I'm not expecting you to write like you are an actual member of the court. I simply want you to be able to explain to me why you think some court case was decided incorrectly. And you're always welcome to use the actual dissents from the Supreme Court justices. Very few cases are decided 9-0. Ironically, the example paper is one of those. That was a unanimous case, and I still picked it and wrote as to why I thought that was incorrect. So hopefully those things will be enough for you to be able to get this done. All right. So if you have any other questions, please email me. I will reply as quickly as possible. Couple of last quick little points. I want to make sure you understand that you're looking at the Roberts, Berger, Warren, or Rehnquist courts, right? Which basically means you have to find a case decided, I believe 1953 or later. Okay, really 1954 or later. I mean, if it was the fall of 53, but if you follow the Supreme Court, they tend to be like high school students, and they wait to the last minute, and the court session is about to end, and they start dumping all of their opinions all in June, even though they've been hearing cases throughout the court's session, which basically goes August to June. They take July off. So those four courts, right? Warren, Berger, Rehnquist, Roberts. And then you have to write a dissenting opinion, right? You cannot write the majority opinion, and you cannot write an opinion on a case that has been overturned. So you cannot write about Roe versus Wade, for instance. That case is overturned with Dobbs v. Jackson, or Jackson v. Dobbs. I'm dyslexic. I forget the order they go in sometimes. All right. So make sure that you're not writing about something that is overturned. All right. Again, if you need help finding those, let me know. I will be glad to try to point you in a direction, especially if you give me an idea of the type of case that you want to deal with. If you want to deal with like the Exxon Valdez oil spill, now you're looking at like legal jargon as to whether or not I can't even remember the term now. I'm on vacation. But it's the idea of whether or not liability can exceed or suffering can exceed liability or things like that. It's a very complex issue. I think you're much better off focusing on things that are First Amendment related, or they're not necessarily First Amendment related, Bill of Rights related, right? Whether that be a death penalty case, whether that be a First Amendment case, freedom of speech case, freedom of religion case. There's a wide variety, I think, that you could look at that should be relatively easy for you to deal with. All right. So again, keep up the good work, keep up the hard work. You're about halfway through, and I look forward to finishing strong with you. All right. Thanks.